All right, guys. Well, seems that we are now live, which is always good. So, I thought for this video, maybe we would do something a wee bit different that I've not really done on the channel before. So, in my local area, there was a brewery called Fallon Brewing, who unfortunately went bust maybe about a year ago. But my mum actually bought me a bunch of beers from this brewery, and they've been sitting in their fridge for a good couple of months. And I've just never gotten around to actually reviewing these beers and having a think about them. So I've got five or six that we can maybe have a little taste of on this stream. What we're going to do is I'll tell you a little bit about Fallon Brewing first, and we'll taste a couple of their different beers because, I don't have time to review these before I actually head off to the US. So this should be quite fun, but something a wee bit different that I've not tried before. But yeah, I was very sad to hear that Fallon Brewing went out of business. That's an unfortunate consequence of the COVID-19 pandemic. But let's go on and have a little look at this. Oh, we've got Jamie. Hello, how's it going? How's it going? Nice to see you watching. I didn't think you would be up this late actually. So yeah, there we go. But what I'll do first then is I'll tell you a little bit about Fallon Brewing, and then we'll try some of these beers and see what they're all about. So, Fallon Brewing, as I've told you many times on the channel before, we're actually based in Kippen, which is kind of to the northwest-ish of Stirling, which is my hometown in central Scotland. You know, you're talking in the Gargunnock area out toward Loch Lomond. Very, very beautiful part of Scotland, actually. But Fallon Brewing was actually established by Paul Fallon and his wife Karen, and Paul is a former home brewer who turned professional. But they bought their brewery site back in 2012, and the brewery was located in the engine shed part of the old Kippen railway station near Stirling in the vicinity of the Fintry Hills and Gargunnock. But the station closed in 1934, but it was one of the busiest on the Forth and Clyde Railway because of the two local creameries, a sandstone quarry and a tile and brick factory that were out there. But initially, to reduce the startup costs and to determine what size of brew kit he wanted to buy, Paul actually began contract brewing at Traditional Scottish Ales, TSA, now Black Wolf Brewery in Throsk, just outside of Stirling. But the first beers were produced at their own brewery in April of 2014, and then over the course of 2016, they built a new building at the brewery to increase the capacity, and they installed a canning line in early 2017, and they gradually scaled up the production over the next few years. But apparently all of the beers were vegetarian and vegan friendly, and the brewery was running off 100% green energy as well. But unfortunately, this brewery went into liquidation in April of 2022 as a consequence of the COVID-19 pandemic. They were just really struggling to get their internet sales and things like that up as well. But as I said, they were a very, very good brewery. Two of my favourite Scottish craft beers came from this brewery, you know, the Platform C West Coast IPA, and then also the Choo Choo, the sweet stout that they did. So that was a lovely beer. That's probably one of my favourite, if not my favourite, low ABV stout actually. But that's everything I can really tell you about the brewery itself. So as I say, we'll just go through some of the different beers and have a little look, because I don't know if I'll ever get the chance to try these ones again. So yeah, and I'm not sure how well in date they are, unfortunately, but they should still be quite nice. We'll have a taste of them and see what we're all about. So yeah, the first one we're going to have a little look at is Odyssey, which comes in at 4.1% ABV. This is an American blonde ale, and it says on the side here, every great journey starts with a small step. Odyssey was the first beer created at Fallon Brewing and is still our flagship recipe. Brewed with lager malts, Sats, Citra, and Mosaic hops, this is a beer brewed to satisfy ale and lager lovers alike. Crisp and refreshing with a tropical and stone fruit aroma and flavour. The artwork in this one is by Zion Kapazi, who did all the stuff when Fallon Brewing kind of rebranded, maybe was that 2018 or so, if I remember correctly, when they moved into the 440 milliliter cans. But yeah, an American blonde at 4.1% ABV, the very first recipe that these guys ever did, apparently. So let's have a look at this and see what it's all about. this should hopefully still be quite nice. So let's do this. It looks good, I have to say. We'll get everything out and into the glass because, you know, why not? There we are. Yeah. This is pretty nice looking, I have to say. So you can see this beer has poured with a lovely finger of a frothy, I would say perfect white head, actually. It looks absolutely great. But as you would expect from a blonde ale, it's got a lovely kind of pale golden straw colour. You can see it's a little bit naturally hazy. One or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass. A few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there. But I mean, overall, it looks pretty nice. And there's nothing really surprising about the appearance of this beer when you consider what style it is. It looks pretty damn good, actually. Yeah, lovely. Pale golden straw colour, this one. So, I'm getting a few questions. JV's saying, yeah, always happens after some high ABV beverages. That it does. That it certainly does. And asking when I leave for the States, that will be on Tuesday, actually. So, yeah, flying from Copenhagen over to Newark. But, yeah, anyway, the blonde ale, this one, this looks really, really good. Let's have a wee look at the aroma then and see what this one is going to have in store for us. Oh, yeah. It does just smell really light and really kind of refreshing and things like this. It smells absolutely lovely. First impression of it is it's got a lovely kind of fresh, white bready, bread crusty backbone. A little bit of cracker in there. Yeah, fresh white bread crust, a little bit of cracker. On top of that, you've got lots of kind of fluffy white bread coming out of this one. A little bit of McVitie's digestive biscuit. It was saying, yeah, it was just saying the hops in it, Sats, Citra, and Mosaic. And we know all these hops quite well. Sats, of course, is your, or Žatec as the Czechs call it. That's your classic Czech lager hop. Citra, we know American, 14% alpha acid, lovely kind of mango-y, lemon-limey kind of characters. And then Mosaic's a kind of tangerine orange, again, 14% alpha acid and American. So yeah, this beer does go together really nicely in that respect. The malty base, as I say, very light and bready, a little bit biscuity, as we said. The green component of this beer is really nice too. You've got a little touch of earthiness from what I guess would be the Mosaic. You've got a good little bit of a kind of floral aromatic sort of thing going on. And then you've got a lovely kind of slightly zesty, grassy character too. Lovely smelling beer, this one. I have to say that. Goes together nicely. It's quite sad that this isn't going to be made again, unfortunately. It's what always happens when good breweries go into to liquidation, unfortunately. But yeah, fruity side of things with this one, again, really quite nice. It's got a lovely sort of... yeah, it's got a lovely kind of, you get a little bit of a kind of lemon limey zest to it. I don't get so much in the way of orange, but for me, it's actually the Zats that comes up quite a little bit. It does smell more like a kind of like Czech pale ale or something like that. You have got a lot of that Czech Žatec hop just coming out of this one. But aroma-wise, this is really, really nice, actually. Very attractive aroma. So let's have a taste of this one then and see what it's all about. This one is the first beer in our little showcase that we're going to do, the Odyssey, a 4.1% American-style blonde ale. Let's get stuck into this one. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Yeah, that's really nice. Even though the beer is about a year old, it's still holding up really quite well. My mum bought these beers for me, like I said, when we heard that Fallon Brewing had gone bust, and I reviewed the Big Imperial Stout for you as a proper sit-down review on the channel a few weeks back. Pretty sure, yeah, that review will definitely have gone live at this point in time. But yeah, I had all these other ones kind of sitting aside that I wanted to kind of review gradually, but I just never really got around to it, unfortunately. But yeah, so I thought we would do a little showcase of these, as we say, but this is lovely. So easy to drink. Really very, very easy to drink. I mean, this beer gets a big, big thumbs up from me. This is why people liked Fallon Brewing, actually. So let's just break this beer down and give you a kind of brief summary of it. I love the kind of, it has a lovely little bit of that kind of Czech lager to it. You know, that sort of Czech Schwetley, almost Pilsen type quality to it, but it's got a lovely, you know, the lovely American hoppy character as well. You know, the American blonde is a style that you really do not find all that often outside of the States, but yeah, Fallon Brewing were one of the few who did, and I regret that I didn't review this one when it was you know, still in production, but like I say, it does go together really nicely, so gets a big thumbs up from me. I do hope that Fallon Brewing kind of resurrect themselves as a kind of gypsy brewer or something like that again at some stage soon. That would be really cool to see them do that. This beer actually reminds me quite a little bit of some of the ones that I've had from my local Williams Brothers brewery. These guys are really interesting. Yeah, but this is good. Let's just break the flavour down a wee bit and describe it for you more in depth. So, the backbone of the beer, the middle third of the palate, you've got this lovely, kind of smooth, just bread crusty base to the beer. Further forward on that middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of a kind of crackery type note coming out of the beer. On top of that, you do get a little bit of a kind of brown bready layer as well. Fluffy white bread for sure, but it's quite crisp and quite light in a sense. You get more graininess and things out of the beer into the aftertaste, but above everything else, you do get a lovely little bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of vibe to the beer. I really like that too. But yeah, flavor wise, this is pretty special, I have to say. I really like this beer. As I say, I do hope Paul Fallon kind of resurrects Fallon Brewing Company at some stage and redoes some of these beers. But yeah, lovely. As I say, the malt base, bit of bread, a little bit of biscuit. It's absolutely great. The back third of your palate is quite similar, except you've got the yeasty character sitting on top of it. And the yeasty side of this beer is quite, it really is quite sort of, you've got a little bit more of a kind of grainy, wholemeal, brown bready character coming out of it, and it's got a little bit of woody and kind of crackery notes to it. But then the sides of your palate in this one, you start to get all the American hoppy notes out of the beer. Like there's a little bit of earthiness in there, which will be from the mosaic, but you will get a wee bit of that from the kind of Sats hop in this one too. But as you move further forward, it's a little bit herbal, and as you push toward the kind of front corners of the palate, it's a little bit more sort of it is a little bit more kind of floral and aromatic, and you do get a wee touch of spiciness out of this one too. But obviously the beer is a little bit older, the hoppy bitterness and things will have dropped out of it. Round the front curve of the palate, it's definitely more, it's definitely got a little bit more of a kind of wet grassy sort of thing to it. And yeah, I think that's really, really nice as well. Yeah, so quite a wet green component to it, this one, I have to say. But, you know, when they say that this beer is good for both lager drinkers and ale drinkers, I have to agree with them. It's a really lovely, light, just drinkable beer, this one. Let's have a wee look at the front third of your palate then, just to kind of round off the tasting. Yeah, front third of the palate is really, really nice. So that base of the front third of your palate, you get quite a bit of sweet bread crust out of this one, bit of wholemeal brown bread, a little bit of white bread as well. Then you get that nice oily bubble where the fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. At the back of that front third of your palate, you're getting a nice little bit of the oily character from the citra. There's a wee bit of like pungent passion fruit, juicy mango in there. And as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of an almost kind of peary, fresh green apple sort of thing, which will be from the Czech Sats. Then as you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, there's a little bit of tangerine orange and also a wee bit of a kind of lemon limey type character as well. Yeah, this is really, Very nice, actually. A lovely, lovely beer, this one. And as I say, just disappointed I never got the chance to try it, or I did get the chance. I just didn't really go to this one. I tended to take their more experimental stuff when I was reviewing Fallon beers, because they were doing really well. There was no real sign that they were kind of struggling until the pandemic, from what I understood. But yeah, mouthfeel wise, this beer, top end of light bodied, bottom end of mid bodied, quite a crisp carbonation to it. I don't know if that's just due to the age of the beer, but yeah, you've got a lovely kind of crisp malt base to this one, a bit dry underneath, a little bit sweet on top. Hoppy bitterness, I think, is a kind of standard 25 or 30-ish IBU. And yeah, the malt base has that wee touch of sweetness. You've got a lovely little bit of fruity character in this one. Yeah, it's a lovely American blonde, this. Like I say, a style you do not come across all that often. But yeah, this is great stuff. As I say, real shame that Fallon Brewing are not in existence anymore. I do hope they come back. But yeah, this was the Odyssey, a 4.1% American blonde ale from Fallon Brewing in Kippen. We have a few other beers that we'll have a look at, including one of my old favourites, but I'll just respond to a few of the kind of comments and things just now as we polish off this beer. But yeah, Jamie's saying I had a few different styles tonight. Electrocution from Salama Brewing, an 8% double IPA. An 8.6% rum barrel-aged imperial pils from Malaskoski. Well, that would be quite interesting. And a 2021 rye malt whiskey imperial stout from Rosso Niemi. Oh, they're good. They are very good. Yeah, you're getting into all your Finnish beers again. That's awesome. But the rum barrel-aged, what's this one? The rum barrel-aged imperial pils was quite interesting. That would be a really quirky beer, actually. But yeah, guys, I see there's a few of you watching now. Let me know, what are you drinking? Where are you drinking from? That's it. But yeah, this is lovely. My first and last taste of the Odyssey from Fallon Brewing. Great stuff. Yeah. So easy to drink. Yeah, these guys were a great brewery. No, I think it was Choo Choo that was the first beer that I tried from these guys. I really couldn't tell you. I think we maybe did about 7 or 8 reviews from. We did 7 or 8 reviews from Fallon Brewing, and they were all really good stuff. Rick saying he's drinking apple juice. Okay. That's a good disguise for beer. That's a good disguise for beer. Let us see. But yeah, I think I don't know if there's been too many other breweries have disappeared from Scotland as a result of the pandemic. I actually discovered that there's a little brewery along the road from me in Airth, which is like 2 miles away or something. I'd never heard of these guys. I just found them when I was playing around with Google Maps, and they seem to sell like little kegs of beer rather than bottles and things. So yeah, I might need to see about getting that the next time I'm home. But I might well not be back in Scotland for about 2 years or something like this. As I say, the channel is going to focus on the Asian craft beer scene over the next few years. So I hope that you guys enjoy it. So yeah, Wiesbaden, very cool. Budweiser Budvar, Czech beer in Wiesbaden going on. I think I've actually been to Wiesbaden. If I remember rightly, that's the kind of Mainz area, isn't it? So yeah, a good pal of mine, when I studied chemistry, I was sent to Heidelberg in Germany, and he was in Mainz. And then when I went to visit him in Mainz, we took the train over to Wiesbaden, had a little walk around. It was really cool, actually. Had a good time over there. I think, if I remember rightly, in Wiesbaden, we drank a beer in the Rathaus Keller or something, I'm sure. Had a nice big Doppelbock there. Good stuff. But yeah, I need to get back to Mainz and make a little out and about video at Ice Group. I loved the Ice Group bar, Ice Group Brew Pub, Brauhaus in Mainz. Yeah, I do miss my unpasteurized, unfiltered German lagers. They were always great. But yeah, I need to get over to the Czech Republic at some stage and film some more kind of videos over there, because yeah, we never did anything really in Czech, which was unfortunate. And of course, that is one of the classic beer countries, kind of often overlooked in favour of Germany and Belgium, though. So, yeah. But yeah, this was very much a kind of spontaneous, live stream that I decided to do because, yeah, I wanted to get through some of these beers and see what they're all about. But this one's been a lovely start, actually. Very, very light, just very, very easy drinking beer. Yeah. Anyone doing anything exciting over the weekend? Because, yeah, we are. My days have just been merging together the last little while. I think this is Saturday morning for me now, isn't it? Yeah. So, trying to think what the next beer is going to be. We do have a few pale ales in this little assortment that I've got. One of them is one of their newer beers, actually, which could be quite interesting. So, yeah. Let's have a little vote then. What do we think? Sort of West Coasty Pale Ale next, or do we go? So we've got a West Coast Pale Ale, we've got a hazy pale, and then we've also got like a session, what they're calling a session IPA. So little vote in from you guys watching. Which one should we have a look at? Let's just see. But those of you watching as well, if you're into your American craft beers, I am going to visit some really nice American craft breweries while I'm over there. So, yeah, lots of fun times coming up. Yeah, but Teo is saying, hello, how are you? Yeah, doing very nice. A little bit tired, of course, but just decided I wanted to do a little showcase of one of my local breweries who unfortunately went bust. That's why we're here at such a random time. Where are you watching from, Teo? Yeah. West Coast IPAs are great. Oh, yeah. I love a good West Coast IPA. We do have a West Coast IPA to look at from them, but I think that is probably better after a couple of the other beers. Yeah. Let's see. So I think, guys, yes, I will be back in about a minute or so with the next beer. But yeah, that first one was the Odyssey from Fallon Brewing. Lovely beer, this one. The first beer they ever did. Unfortunately, this is no more. Just be back in a little second, guys. Beer number 2. All right, guys. So back with beer number 2 then. So I had a little look at the ABVs because I felt this would be one of the determining factors. But we actually have another one of their core beers to have a little look at. This one is the Locomotive, and this one is a Mosaic Session Ale at 3.9% ABV. Yeah. I do like, you can see, I'm not sure how well you guys can see that, but in the artwork there, you can see the kind of outline of Stirling Castle. Really very nice, very, very historic, of course. But it tells you on the side here, local motive, first brewed for our local, the Cross Keys in Kippen. This beer is a classic, balanced, easy drinking session style that's been modernised by the addition of mosaic dry hops. A solid amber-hued malt backbone balances the complex stone fruit and citrus hops flavours to give a satisfying and moreish beer. Yeah. Should be interesting, this one. But I just picked this one, as I say, because this was the lowest ABV of the beers that I still had in the fridge. But I never tried this one. I never did. But Mosaic, as we know, is a really nice American hop, 14% alpha acid, big sort of tangerine flavours and aromas. Let's get it out into the glass and see what it's all about. It's quite nice having some session beers. Well, yeah, so you're saying it's a train reference. Exactly, because these guys were based in an old train station, basically. So yeah, that's the reason why they've got so many train references. You'll see that with one of the other beers a little bit later on. Hazer Games saying, hello dude, have a nice day. Nice to see you. Thanks for dropping in. Yeah. So yeah, as I say, locomotive, a 3.9% Mosaic session ale. Let's get this guy out into the glass and see what it's all about. There we are. That looks very nice, actually. I do love a little bit of malt backbone to my beers. I'm just going to see if I can move this a little bit closer to the camera. I think I've maybe just got my computer sitting a little bit too high as we stream this, but it's just meant to be a little bit of fun. We say you shouldn't take it too seriously. But yeah, let me just bring the light over here a little bit, and we'll see. Maybe this will work a little bit better. You can see, if I bring the beer up here, it's got a lovely, very rich, sort of amber West Coasty type colour to it. Head on this one is quite bumpy, in fact. You guys can maybe see that there, lovely. And a more bumpy, cream, off-white coloured head. Let me just see if I can adjust this a little bit. Maybe, nah, terrible with this lighting in here. Yeah, that's not the best. There we go. But yeah, colour of this one, lovely sort of rich amber orange. One or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass. A few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head. But yeah, definitely a more rich amber colour this one. So I think this is going to be a more kind of, when we talk about it being a session IPA, it's going to be a little bit more West Coasty rather than anything else. So remember, the definition of like a West Coast IPA as opposed to a New England one is that West Coast things always tend to be a little bit more bitter because of the use of early edition hopping, but they also tend to use mainly barley malt in their malt bases rather than a bit of wheat and oat, as you'll find in the New England hazies. But yeah, lovely looking beer, this one, I have to say. I think kind of we look at the aroma then and just see what this one's all about. This should be nice. So the aromas doesn't really jump out of the glass at you. I have to say that it's a very kind of mild-mannered beer, this one, actually. Yeah, very mild-mannered sort of session pale ale or something like that, this one. The backbone of the beer, you do get a little bit of that kind of fresh, wholemeal, brown bready bread crust coming out of it. There's a little tiny bit of woodiness, a little bit of cracker, but a lot of like slightly sweeter wholemeal, brown bready character to this beer. Yeah, it really is quite nice, in fact. On top of that, you get a little bit of white bread for sure. But then you actually get a little bit more brown sugar out of this beer. It has a little bit of a slightly toasty brown sugary note to it. Wee touch of a kind of oily sweet caramel for certain. Yeah, the way that this beer goes together, I think, is really very nice. So yeah, a little bit of oily sweet caramel, a little bit of Werther's Original, McVitie's Digestive, biscuity character for sure. And then, yeah, I think that covers everything we really need to say about the malty side of the aroma. On to the hoppy side of the beer then. For me, a little bit of earthiness. Yeah, a little bit of earthiness. Wee touch of herbal character. Quite a big floral aromatic note to this one. So it's got a little bit of floral aromatic spice to it. Nice big, yeah, Nice little bit of floral aromaticity. Nice little bit of a kind of grassy zestiness to it as well, which I wasn't quite expecting. And then on the fruity side of things, if you know Mosaic, it's actually really kind of akin to what you would expect from that hop. Yeah, lovely big sort of oily orangey tangerine notes. I do get a little bit of a more kind of pineapple-y note out of the beer, and there's maybe a wee slight touch of like dry apricot or something like that too. But all in all, the aroma of this one is very, very nice, and I'm really curious to try it. Oh, I see we've got Mr. Johnny Gartland here. All right, man, how's everything with you? I'm off to Tegernsee in the next few weeks and catching one of the first days of Oktoberfest too. Yeah, you told me about that. It's shame we couldn't meet up this time when I'm home. Just too much stuff going on with work and getting organised for heading out to Asia. But yeah, no, always cool. We need to figure something out for sure. Tegernsee is on my list. So I am a little bit jealous of you there. But I was just about to get stuck into this one. So Johnny, I don't know if you ever tried any of the beers from Fallon Brewing. But yeah, we'll have a taste of this one and see what this is all about. This is the Locomotive 3.8% Mosaic Session Ale. 3.9%, sorry. Mosaic Session Ale, this one. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Yeah, that's really nice. The thing I would say about this one is that in comparison to the aroma, it actually has it's got less sweetness to it than you might expect it to have. As I say, this beer is a good few, it's about a year old when we're drinking this one, so it's not in its freshest condition. But yeah, just from the colour of it and from the aroma, I was expecting it to have a little bit more kind of brown sugary sort of sweetness to it. And it does have a little bit of that to an extent into the aftertaste, but as I say, nowhere near as much as you might think it's going to have. So yeah, I would say with this one, it's quite an oily kind of wet beer, this, but everything goes together really quite well. It's nothing kind of mind-blowing in a sense, but then it is meant to be a session ale. It's just meant to be nice and light and drinkable, and it delivers on all those counts. So let's just break it down and describe its flavour a little bit more, as I always like to do. So if you go to the middle third of your palate, then the backbone of the beer, you've got that lovely kind of brown bready, wholemeal brown bready bread crust. That's the backbone of the beer. Further forward on that middle third of your palate, you get a little touch of woodiness in there. There's a wee bit of a sort of Jacob's cream cracker type thing coming out of it as well. And that lingers there into the aftertaste. But yeah, above the bread crust, you do get a bit of a distinctive wholemeal brown bready character. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a wee bit of Maris Otter in this beer. It doesn't say that on the actual on the side of the beer to be at all, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a wee bit of Maris Otter in this one, just from the way the bready character comes out, the wholemeal brown bread, and then the kind of brighter white bread sitting above that. But then above the kind of brighter white bread, you do start to get a little bit of a what would we say? You do start to get a little bit of a kind of above the kind of white bread, there's a little touch of like a very dry Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing. That definitely lingers there. And then on top of all that bready character on the middle third of your palate, it's like you've got a little circle there, and it's a kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotch. Then in the dead centre of your palate, there's just a little bit of a kind of straight up sweet caramelly sort of thing. So yeah, it is more of a Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotch, but there's a wee bit of biscuit in there too. This beer doesn't strike me as being kind of overly West Coasty or anything like that. It is more like, it does feel very much like a session IPA, and the whole idea behind session IPAs is that they take the IPA malt to hop ratio and they simply put less malt in it so that it's lower ABV, and so that the beer is lighter and more drinkable. But it doesn't feel quite hoppy and punchy enough, this one, to be considered a session IPA, and they are just terming it a session ale. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. It is a little bit like a sort of more malty golden ale, this one, but yeah, I like it. Do we need to say anything else about the middle third of the palate? I'm not so sure about that. I think we covered it, to be honest. So for me, I think we've covered the middle third of the palate. The back third of the palate is really quite similar, just the bready layers are a bit lighter and more airy, but then above everything else, on the back third of your palate, you do get a little bit more of a kind of yeasty character out of this one. So you've got a wee bit of a kind of dense, you do have a little bit of a more dense wholemeal brown bready sort of thing. You can feel the yeasty character there. There's a little bit more just dense wholemeal brown bread wrapped in a little bit of honeycomb with a wee touch of like Jacob's cream cracker and stuff like that going on. But yeah, definitely the back, as you often get, the back third of your palate, the flavour is taller, and as you move further forward in the middle third of your palate, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. But yeah, very brown bready, white bready, and slightly Werther's Original leaning malt base, this one. On the hoppy side of things with this beer then, it's kind of what you'd expect if you know the hop. In the back corners of the palate, there's a little touch of earthiness there. So yeah, a little bit of earthiness there, as we say. As you move further forward along the sides of the palate, there's a little bit of herbal character. And as you push toward the kind of front corners of your palate, it shows you a little bit more of a kind of floral aromatic sort of thing. And then round the front curve of the tongue, definitely a little bit lighter and more grassy, I would say. So yeah, I really do like how that pieces together in this one. It's quite interesting. It really is interesting for sure, this. So yeah, cool stuff. On the fruity side of things, then we'll go to that front third of your palate, as we quite often do. So at the base of the front third of your palate, you still get the bread crust in there. Feels a little bit lighter. Remember the general trend with your palate that sweeter flavors come out further forward, more dry and bitter flavors come out further back on the palate. So yeah, you've got a nice kind of yeah, you definitely have a sort of wholemeal brown bready bread crust base in there, the wholemeal brown bread, a white bread above it. Then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, pardon me, for the fruity side of things, it is pretty much as you'd expect. It's very orangey, quite oily and tangerine. There's a wee bit of zestiness in there as well at the very kind of front tip of the tongue. So yeah, nice kind of oily, zesty character coming out of this one from that, but you'd expect that of Mosaic, to be honest with you. Overall, I'd say it's quite a brown bready leaning beer, this one, with a good little bit of orangey character and a wee bit of a kind of leafy, wet, grassy type note. So it's really nice and just drinkable. It kind of gives you what you would expect when you buy a beer that says it's a Mosaic session ale. So yeah, nothing overly surprising about this beer flavor wise, considering what we know about it when we buy it. But yeah, let's round off the review with just a wee look at the mouthfeel then. So yeah, for me, the mouthfeel of this one, it's mid-bodied. Yeah, carbonation is very, very smooth. Feels very, very clean. I often comment on this with Scottish beers that because of our water quality, many Scottish beers just feel very, very clean. But yeah, the malty side of things, you have got a little bit of a kind of grainy backbone to the beer. You have a little bit of a little bit of dryness into the aftertaste. If we're talking about the IBUs of this beer, I think this one might be 30-ish IBUs. It just has quite a nice floral character lingering there, but also a wee touch of earthiness. And the malt base gives you a little bit of graininess too. So you can talk about calculated bitterness and perceived bitterness here. And I think it's got a wee bit of everything, to be honest with you. But yeah, the fruity side of the beer, nice and kind of wet and sort of tangerine orangey. But yeah, it's nice, this one. It's it really goes together pretty damn solidly, I have to say, but quite wet and quite leafy, as I say, and this just nice and juicy. And especially for a session IPA or a session ale or whatever it is intended to be, the character of this beer is held up. It's held up really quite well, in fact. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. To be honest with you, we can just enjoy the rest of it and have a look at some of the comments. So Johnny's saying, no, I've not tried anything from Fallon. Isn't that where you're from? Yeah, no, I was born in Stirling. So these guys are just a little bit along the road in Kippen. Maybe, what's that, about 15 miles away from Stirling, something like that. But yeah. Every year-old can of beer I've had has lost most of its soul. Yeah, I think ales. I think ales hold up a little bit more than lagers do. In fairness, and I'm guessing from where you are, you will drink mostly lager beers. But yeah, I think the American sort of ales, yeah, the American style ales will hold up a little bit better than a number of other things, I would say. So it's an interesting point. Speedster is saying hello. There we go. The optimum age I'm my exotics experience is 2 to 4 months old. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the style. I tried some New England IPAs recently, and I felt I just drank them a little bit too early. Which one was that now? I honestly can't remember, but there was a beer that I had that I just felt I drank it a little bit early, to be honest with you. So yeah, I'm thinking for this little live stream, maybe we will just do another 2 after this, and we'll kind of stick to the sort of core range beers. The next one that we'll do, I haven't actually tried, but it was one of the newer members of their core range, but really quite well regarded. And I think we'll round off with a beer that I have tried from these guys before, one that I know that's pretty good. Because honestly, I am actually getting quite sleepy at this point in time, and I suppose it makes sense when it's 2:42 in the morning. So yeah, fun times. I didn't sleep very well last night, actually. Just got woken up by the light and all this kind of stuff. It's one of the things I struggle with in the summer a little bit, is just keeping a regular sleep pattern. So I like that young, grassy, oniony flavour of young New England IPAs. Yeah, I mean, I think when we say that, what I mean is I find that New England IPAs can be quite almost hot burny in their first few weeks. I think you have to leave them at least 2 or 3 weeks in the can just to mellow out and to start to show you the juicy side of things. So yeah, interesting point there that you like that oniony. No, I actually wouldn't have described it as oniony myself. I would have said it was just like very big and floral, to be honest with you, like, spicy floral. But Speedster is saying he's from France. I like your reviews. Thanks for all. No, glad you enjoyed it, and thanks very much for tuning in to a very late night live stream. It's always cool. And Alien Tricks is saying hello from France too. So bonjour, merci beaucoup. Yeah, interesting stuff. So yeah, that's another beer from Fallon Brewing. As I say, this one's pretty solid. I think out of the 2 so far, though, I think Odyssey I would prefer, to be honest with you. I think the Odyssey one, this is quite a light and crisp beer. If I want an IPA, if I want something that's a bit more malty and a bit more hoppy, in honesty, I probably would just go for like a West Coast IPA. It's fair to say. Oh, okay. This is interesting. So, bought 3 beers back from Lisbon. One is called Kama Sutra, and the others were Gurkha. These are all from Nepal. Pretty weird beers. Yeah, it's not often you come across stuff from Nepal. I actually worked with a couple of guys from Nepal in Sweden who were lovely, actually. So I could probably try and get some. I remember there was a craft brewery started up there that was called Sherpa or something quite stereotypical like that. Actually, it had a very stereotypical name, and they were brewing some sort of craft lager beer. which was supposed to be really nice too. So yeah, there are craft breweries in Nepal. Nepal's on my list of places to go. Yeah, trekking in Nepal I think would be a hell of an experience. Definitely something that I would love to do. Yeah. Let's just rattle this one off then and we'll go to the next beer. See, so this is our last little bit of Locomotive from Fallon Brewing. It is actually, you get a bit more sweetness out of this beer if you take a wee bit of a gulp of it. So yeah, good stuff. Still got a wee bit left over. So let's go to beer number 3, but that one was the Locomotive Mosaic Session Ale from Fallon Brewing. So yeah, let's have a little look at the next one. The next one we're going to do is a session beer once again, but it was one of the newer additions to this brewery's core range, and it was supposed to be very good. So yeah, give me in the comment section while I'm just away sorting this beer, let me know what your favourite kind of session beers are. Be quite interested to hear what you guys have to say on that one. Back in a second. Darling. Yo, right, guys. So back at the moment, ended up making myself a few slices of bread just because you have to line the stomach a wee bit if you're going to session a few beers. We'd always say that. So we have, pardon me, a few things here. So Lucia was the best of the three. The others tasted skunky, maybe because the green bottles. Yeah, that's potato. That could well be. Green bottles are not going to protect you from light damage in the same way that the brown bottles are. My go-to beer in my youth was Railbender Ales, brewed in Erie, Pennsylvania. And now defunct, my favourite German session beer is Jever Pils. So it's an interesting one. What city is Jever from again? I forget. Is Jever actually a city on its own? Or is it a Dortmunder? Kind of hellish, that one, if I remember rightly. Yeah. So Lepra from Panimoitio to You was a great session ale I had recently, which is 4.9%. The other one I like is Neck Oil from Beavertown. Neck Oil is fairly solid, actually. I've not had that beer in a very long time. But yeah, I'm just going to munch away on this and see what I have. Yeah. I thought that. Trying to remember, where is Jever? I saw it on the map recently. Because I was researching for another brewery and I came across Jever and obviously recognised the name. But yeah, I don't know, Goats, have you been watching some of the German videos that I've been putting up on the channel recently? Have you ever tasted the Rinse Pig? Rinse Cochon. It's a French beer made in Belgium and it's 8.5%. I've never heard of that one. Is that the name of the beer brand or the actual brewery? I love my Belgian beers and I love the French beers. Yeah. You always watch the German videos. That's good. Yeah. No, it's been really cool, actually. I would say that over the last few weeks when I've been home in Scotland this time, I had some German beers. I bought some German beers from Beers of Europe, and it's been really cool to review that. You know, I'm trying to remember where we are in the publishing schedule just now. I just kept scheduling stuff, but I tried to mix it up. You know, every 3-4 days there was a German review, but it's been a mix of German and Scottish, and that's been really cool. Been exploring the Kulshies a little bit more, the Alp beers. I wanted to do the Dortmunder Helles, but there's just not so many of them available. And after you do DLB, you're kind of stuck for choice on that one, to be honest with you. One that I didn't get round to doing, though, that I probably should have, was Diebels. I never really got around to doing the Diebels Alp beer, so that's something I will need to add to the channel at some stage. But I think that's quite easy to get worldwide, to be honest with you. So, yeah, good stuff. Anyway, just about finished this slice of bread, and we've got the next beer ready to go, almost. So, yeah, our next beer, if I don't drop it first. The next beer should be quite an interesting one. So, this beer was one of the, let me just get rid of the comment for the moment. This beer was one of the newer additions to Fallon's core range. The Switch Hazy Paleo. This was supposed to be a really quite nice one, in fact. I actually thought it was an IPA, a New England IPA, rather than a paleo, but still should be interesting. So it says on the side here, this one comes in at 4.8%, incidentally. So it says, Switch, a smooth base of pale malts and oat yields a soft, pillowy texture, while liberally dry hopping leaves the beer bursting with flavours and aromas of ripe mango and guava. The delicate bitterness allows tropical fruits to take centre stage in this juicy, hazy, and refreshing paleo. So, should be nice. But there you go, as I say, the Switch, 4.8% ABV, this one. Let's get it out into the glass and we'll see what it's all about. So, they are. Hopefully this one's kind of held up okay, because New England's hazy beers can be a little bit funny if the beer is a wee bit older. There you go. See, the head on this one is a little bit funky, but still, that's going to behave fairly decently. Yeah, so you can see that this beer is poured pretty much as you would expect from a hazy IP or pale ale or whatever of any description. So the head, pardon me, is obviously quite bumpy in this case, but I would describe it as being perfect white. Yeah, you can see those big bumpy balls in it there, which is great. But yeah, in terms of the colour of this beer, I would describe it as being quite a light kind of mango juice colour. So in terms of the colour of beer, remember the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging you do or adjuncts you put in can affect the colour of your beer too. But as I often say, when it comes to New England IPAs, it's very rare that you actually have to care about those two particular variables. But I think definitely in terms of colour, this one is very akin to like a nice kind of bright mango juice. Level of haze in this one is not a lot, but then again, it's a 4.8% hazy pale ale. It's not exactly like an 8% double or 10% triple New England. So to be honest, at this ABV, you wouldn't expect too much in the way of haziness, but that can vary from brewery to brewery, recipe to recipe, and so on. You shouldn't be focusing too much on the alcohol scale when it comes to your perception of haziness. But remember, the haziness in these beers depends on the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use too. But yeah, this beer, I think, looks pretty much as you would expect from a hazy pale ale. So yeah, let's have a wee look at the aroma and see what this one is going to have in store for us. Yeah. First impression is it's lovely and smooth, and it has this lovely kind of smooth, juicy. Yeah, it's just got this lovely, smooth, slightly dry malt base to it. Big, juicy, like tropical fruity characters, as we were saying. And then a lovely, just kind of quite light and refreshing green component to it. It smells really nice, in fact, so it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah. On the just spilt a little bit over the side there, but not big a deal. Yeah. On the aroma side of things, the backbone of the beer is, as you would expect, you've got a lovely little bit of that kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. There's little bits of cracker. There's a little touch of woodiness to it, but then you get a mix of like a fluffy, you really do get a mix of like a big fluffy white bready character coming out of this one. So yeah, bread crust, bit of cracker, bit of wood, big fluffy white bready bread crust, and yeah, then you start to get this big fluffy white bready character out of this one. You get a little bit of wheaty bitiness in the back of the nose with the beer. So yeah, a little bit of wheaty bitiness in there, but mainly you actually get this really nice kind of, there's this really nice sort of, I would say, like creamy. You do get quite. You still get a little bit of creamy oaty character out of this one, but you have to remember with New England's, the level of creaminess that you get in the oats is usually an indicator of how old the beer is. That we know this beer is not fresh. It's a year old, but you still get a little bit of that creaminess. You get a little bit of the dryness out of the oats, which is usually the indicator that the beer being a little bit older too. But it still smells quite nice. There are little hints of like a Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy type thing coming out of this one. But yeah, overall, from a malty perspective, this beer, it goes together really quite nicely. One of the things that you quite often find with like pale ales and session New Englands is that they'll put a bit more wheat in there to give the beer a little bit of zip, and that almost helps kind of carry it and just make it a wee bit more sort of punchy. You have that more wheaty kind of zip and also the kind of more floral aromatic type qualities coming out of it. So yeah, the way that all of that goes together in this beer, I think is really quite nice. Yeah, the way this beer goes together, I think, is really very, very nice. So on the malty side of things, it gets a big thumbs up from me. On the hoppy side of things, it has a nice green component to it. You get a little tiny bit of earthiness, little bit of herbal character, nice bright floral note. Again, a little bit of a kind of wet, freshly cut grass. It's got the floral notes and the grassy notes in many of these Fallon beers are quite wet and leafy, I'm finding. I don't know if that's much to do to the age, or to do with the age, I should say. But yeah, it still seems to be a common theme in them. Fruity side of the beer, as I say, there's a little bit of apricot in there. You do get a lot of kind of nice juicy passion fruit and mango as well. And then you've also got, yeah, I'd say just apricot, little touch of pineapple, mango, all of these sorts of things. It didn't say what hops are in this one, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was something like a little bit of Galaxy or Victoria's Secret or Idaho 7, something like that. It seems like it's one of the kind of lighter, more tropically leaning hops that you're getting in this beer. But yeah, as I always say, take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer. I think it's about time that we get stuck into this one and see what it's all about. So this is the Switch, 4.8% hazy pale ale, one of the core range beers from Fallon Brewing, formerly in Kippen, here in Scotland. Sláinte, skål, cheers. That's a really solid pale ale, actually. Yeah, that's really nice. Really nice pale ale, that one. Again, very clean. It's, what do we say about this one? It's a very clean, but still it gives you that very kind of smooth and slightly thicker quality from a pale ale. I have to admit, probably just from a personal perspective, I'm a little bit of a sucker for kind of brown sugar and stuff like this. So it makes sense that I kind of enjoy the West Coast IPAs a bit more than the New Englands. It's just kind of how it is for me, to be honest with you. But yeah, the creamy, the lightness and stuff that you get with this just makes it really, really drinkable. It's a thumbs up for me, a solid core. As a core range beer, core range pale ale, this is pretty damn good, actually. And this is probably the newest of the beers that we'll have a little look at on the channel tonight. But yeah, I do suspect there's a little bit of Idaho 7, Victoria's Secret, or maybe Galaxy or something like that in this. But it's good stuff. Like I say, it gets a thumbs up from me. Let's just break the beer down then and describe it a wee bit more in depth, as I always like to do on the channel. So middle third of the palate, then you can feel that nice kind of smooth, fresh white bready bread crust there forming the backbone of the beer. As you move further forward on that middle third of your palate, you do have a little bit of a more kind of woody character to the beer, and that lingers there into the aftertaste. But yeah, above all of the kind of bread crust, you get a good little bit of Jacob's cream cracker, and that really does linger into the aftertaste with this beer. That's definitely fair to say. So yeah, for me, the way the malt base on this one is done is really nice, and it's held up very well. You can see that right away. But yeah, above the cracker, you get a little bit of a sweet kind of wholemeal brown bready character. Then you get a fluffier white bready layer above that, and you can feel just on the top edge of that, you get the wheat just kind of densifying out the beer. And then down the kind of middle line of your tongue, you've got the more dense oaty characteristics coming out, and they just kind of spread out toward the edge of your palate there a little bit. But in the dead center of that middle third of your palate, you can feel there's a little touch of Werther's Original and a wee bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity note just pushing out toward the edges of the palate there. But I think that covers the malty side of this beer, to be quite honest with you. The back third of your palate is quite similar. As I always say, you get similar flavours on the back third of the palate, just at different kind of intensities. So, yeah, this is quite interesting for sure too. Yeah. The back third of the palate, once again, you've got the fresh white bready bread crust in there. You've got the Jacob's cream cracker. The wholemeal bready layer is there, but that feels a little bit lighter and more airy. Then you've got a more, above that, you do get the fluffier white bready layer. Above all of that, you can feel the kind of white bready note coming out of this one and the kind of wheaty bitiness in there. Then the yeasty kind of characteristics. So, yeah, the yeasty side of this beer, I think, is the yeasty side of this beer is really quite interesting too, because it's like a more dense white bready character. It feels a little bit like you've got more dense white bready character. This one, a little bit of McVitie's digestive kind of biscuity note to it, and then yeah, you've also got a wee touch of a kind of crackery sort of thing coming out of it too. But definitely, again, back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. But I think we've covered the malty. Pardon me, took that down the wrong way. We've covered the malty side of this beer pretty nicely in this one. So let's look at the hoppy side of things. Yeah, so green component wise, it's kind of what you'd expect. There's a little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward along the sides of your palate, it's got a little bit more of a kind of herbal character. And as you push toward the kind of front corners of the palate, you can feel that it very quickly becomes very bright and nice and floral. It has got a wee bit of bitterness to it into the aftertaste too, but round the front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy, I would say, for sure. The green component is really, really nice. So yeah, green component in this beer does go together very well. And I'm really impressed at how well these Fallon beers have held up over the year. I don't know when my mum actually bought these. I think it was just after they went bust. I'm sure it was April 22 that these guys unfortunately went bust. And my mum bought these beers for me pretty much right on the button. When that happened, I asked her to go into my local shop and get some of them before they disappeared. But yeah, the green component in this one is nice, and it still feels pretty fresh. But on the front third of your palate, then you get that little bit of bready base there, the bread crust, the white bread, then you get the nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. This one is great. I mean, at the back of that front third of your palate, you're getting a little bit of there is a little touch of grapefruit to this one. You're getting a nice kind of pungent passion fruity note out of it as well. But then as you move toward the middle of that front third of your palate, there's juicy mango in there. There's a little bit of apricot and papaya sort of character underneath. And then as you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, it's got a little bit more of a slightly lemony, limey type note to it. So yeah, I do suspect a little bit of Victoria's Secret in this one, to be honest with you, or a little bit Galaxy. I think Galaxy and Citra would make sense for the kind of flavors that you get out of this beer, actually. But it's nice. It is really, really nicely done, this one. Very, very good paleo, in fact. And I think anyone who enjoys a New England IPA would probably enjoy this as a light, sort of more sessionable version. But we never got to see Fallon experiment a little bit with the bigger, 8% things. I think they did it once or twice, but yeah, as I say, fortunately, that dream is dead. But yeah, really nice paleo, this one. As I say, gets a big thumbs up from me. Mouthfeel-wise, I'd say this one's kind of bottom end and mid-bodied. The carbonation is really nice and really smooth in this one. But again, the beer feels very clean. We say this quite often, or I say this quite often with Scottish beers. They will feel quite clean and slightly oily because of the quality of the water. That's quite apparent in a lot of the Fallon beers, especially when you drink a few of them. But the malt base, as we said, you've got a lovely little bit of graininess, dryness under there, a little bit of breadiness, little touch of sweetness. in the malt base. The hoppy character, I think this is a fairly standard, 25, 30-ish IBU beer for me. That's very common for this style. And then, yeah, you've got the kind of drier tropical fruits, a little bit of zestiness and stuff in there. And yeah, the kind of wetter green component. But yeah, really very, very nice. Paleo, this one. And yeah, if I'd done a proper sit-down review of this, it would have got a very good rating. So yeah, that's that. This was the newest member of the core range that we're going to have a little look at in this stream. And I see we've got a few comments, so we'll have a little look at that. So, yeah, that was good. You can see here. Oh, no, it's Jimmy C first. So, yeah, Debos was my all-time favourite alt beer. Bolton also has a good one to review if you can find it. Yeah, Bolton Brewery are quite difficult to get a hold of, actually. So, yeah, that's kind of interesting. But yeah, I did try a bottle of Diebels many years ago when I was in Germany, but I didn't get the chance to actually review it. Definitely not. So yeah, Bolton and Diebels alt beers would be quite interesting to try. Hey, smoke weed every day. Yeah, that's not such a good idea because that kind of fries your brain. I've seen that happen to good friends of mine. The other thing about weed is that from the chemical perspective, it burns at a higher temperature. So if you smoke weed, you are more likely to develop things like mouth cancer because, yeah, it denatures the cells in your mouths, and that's what causes cancer. So, yeah, that's not very good advice, that one. A trend for beer reviewers is to attempt to review CBD or cannabis drinks. Thoughts? Haven't partaken in the herb myself since the bicentennial, but interesting to watch. Yeah, no, I mean, in terms of the TH, I mean, my grandmother had lung cancer as a result of smoking. So I've just been very against smoking things, and vapes I'm very concerned about as well because they can cause liquid in the lung and stuff like that. But that aside, I don't really have any strong feelings against recreational cannabinol use, or whatever we're going to call it these days. If people want to do it, that's fine, but I would highly recommend against smoking it. I think if I was ever to try it myself, it would probably be in one of the cakes or something like that. I wouldn't smoke it for sure. But yeah, we've got Sam saying hello, Jimbo. Nice to see you, Sam. Yeah, you and I are going to be a lot closer to each other very soon, actually. That's pretty awesome. And he's also saying hi to Jimmy C. And yeah, that's the same question that we had earlier on. I've not seen any of the reviews of these, though, right enough. That could be an interesting thing. Here's a question for you guys watching. What is the most unusual adjunct that you've had in a beer? I've had two very interesting ones from Iceland, but I'm curious to see whether you guys can top that. So yeah, let's see what you've got. What is the most unusual adjunct you've had in a beer? And I still have a nice slice of bread here to enjoy as I polish off this one. But I might leave a little bit of this one for my dad, actually. We'll see. Yeah, this is one of the things I'm not used to drinking such volume of beer. Like these three that we've done so far, I would have been quite happy with like half a can of each. So maybe that's how we're going to have to go going forward. Maybe have half a can, or I'll leave some for my dad to try actually and see what he thinks. But yeah, elderflower. That's interesting because I can see why, from a German perspective, that'd be quite unusual because, over there you have the Reinheitsgebot, and, messing around with ingredients in beer is very unusual. But in Scotland, I could name quite a few beers that use a little bit of elderflower in them. That's not so uncommon over here or in Sweden. I am of the same mind. Never smoked, never even tried it, never want to. Weed can also be very dangerous for the people in the wrong mental state. I lost a good friend to it. Yeah, that's a fair point. It ruins a lot of like motivation and things like that, and it can, if there's prolonged use of it, it can really like sap someone's motivation and affect their intelligence. And well, I don't know if in fact damage their intelligence is the right way to put it, but it really affects their motivation and their ability to kind of achieve things. And it definitely does affect someone's kind of everyday mood. Yeah. Mm. That's really a thing in char-grilled kangaroo, ants, brewer's belly button hair yeast, and you name it, brother. I've tried it. So you've tried beers with that. This is one of the things. Obviously, Sam comes from the Pinot colony, so yeah, some of the really interesting things he's going to. Yeah, I can say Sam definitely has struck me as the kind of person who's like, fuck it, why not? Let's try it. So I'm not surprised that he's tried some really random stuff, but some of these are just ridiculous. It's great. mm, mm. We have a festival dedicated to mind-blowing beer experimentation. Sam, when you do make it over to Europe, I want to take you to the Disgusting Food Museum in Malmo. I think that's something that you would quite enjoy. I do think that. Yeah. This bread is lovely. This is one of the things I do miss about one of the things I really do miss about Scotland is the bread. I don't know what it is I like so much about the Scottish bread, but at the same time, I do love the German and Swedish bread too. But yeah, I love bread. I love bread and butter. You can't really go wrong with that. So, should try and polish this off as well, because we need to get on to the next one. But yeah, what was it called? That brewery you showed me, Sam, Mountain Culture. I tried a few of the Aussie breweries that I found in Japan when I was up there, and I really enjoyed those beers actually. And it was really cool to film some Aussie stuff that obviously you can relate to on the channel too. So yeah, you need to give me a few more Aussie recommendations that I can have a look at. Either that, or we'll need to see if you can send me a package up to Hong Kong when I reach there. We need to get you some. You need to send me an Aussie care package, and I'll send you some money for the beers. So what are we saying as well? Yeah, it's good, and I could try some char grilled kangaroo. Kangaroo, in my experience, it's a lovely meat to cook with. My uncle lives in a little place called St George in Queensland, which is it 600 k's west of Toowoomba? I honestly can't remember. It's basically halfway across the southern border, or the southern border of Queensland. The New South Wales border. And I had a great couple of months there. Actually, I'd love to go to Australia and maybe teach for a year or two. One of the rural programs. I know that my uncle's local high school was looking for a science teacher, so it would be quite cool to go out there and stay with my uncle for a bit and review some Aussie beers and travel around Australia a bit more. That would be awesome. But yeah, so yeah, it was cool seeing drinking. Yeah, I know, I enjoyed it. The mountain culture stuff I was really impressed with. I mean, it wasn't at its freshest, it was obvious, but it was still really good quality stuff. And I mean, if I think about Australia and New Zealand, my sort of perception of it when I was there back in sort of 2014, 2015 was that New Zealand was the more advanced beer country out of the two, because obviously you had the hop industry down there and so on. But it seems that it's kind of evened out a lot more these days. So that's interesting. I had kangaroo tacos paired with wild fermented beers a few weeks back. Brilliant. Can imagine it would be. Kangaroo's a beautiful meat to cook with, very lean. Is that a big thing, Sam, down in Australia? Would you eat deer as well, venison? Because for me, kangaroo is always very much like venison. Yeah, oysters as well. Yeah, I've had oyster stouts are quite popular in Japan. I've had a good few of those over there, and from other places as well. But my most unusual adjunct that I had on the that I had in a beer. There was two. It would be whale's fin. I tried an imperial porter with either stout or a porter. I tried a whale fin beer in Iceland, which obviously was quite controversial, but I kind of thought, well, why not? The thing's dead already. Not that I agree with whaling at all, but well, that's a subject that's not good after you've had a couple of beers. But yeah, the other one would be the malt, the Fenrir Tadriktur from Borg Brewhus, which had malt in it that was smoked using smoke that was filtered through sheep shit. So yeah, that's probably the two most unusual beers I've had have been Icelandic. But when you're a little island of 350,000 people in the middle of the Atlantic, just chilling there, your idea of a good time is going to be a little bit strange to many people. So we can say that. So yeah, deer is also common, but not very common. Yeah, I remember that in Australia, not seeing so much in the way of deer. I guess it would be more common in the kind of southern part of the country, the south of WA and the south of Victoria as well, and maybe Tasmania. Yeah, Tasmania I do want to explore, actually. I'd love to go and drive around Tasmania and see what it's all about. Love and oyster stout, underrated. I unfortunately can't have them because fish reacts very badly with my stomach, so I just try and avoid everything in that sense. Kangaroo tacos with wild fermented beers. Geez. Yeah, we'll put hair on your chest, that. That's it. Yeah, Sam, you do strike me as quite a hairy man, I have to say that, definitely. So, yeah, that's it. I'm trying to think of something else. So, what I would like, and there's a few of you watching from different places. Obviously, Jamie's lived in a few different countries. It would be interesting to hear from you guys that are watching, the three of you. What are your favourite breweries in your home country and why? And what are your favourite breweries anywhere in the world and why? It could be because of a certain beer or whatever. But just be very curious to hear this. Been a while since I've been live, so I'm asking like really lame questions. Yeah. That's maybe fair. That is maybe fair. Sam's probably just going to agree with that. Tap 6. Is that the Aventinus, the Weizenbock? Aventinus, you cannot go wrong. If that is Aventinus, as I suspect it is, yeah, you can't really go wrong with a little bit of that. Aventinus is a very, very nice beer. So, yeah, that's a good shout. That is a good shout. Either Ranger Boat Rocker. Oh, yeah. So remind me, Sam, I did try Mountain Culture. I had that IPA that was a collaboration with everyone imaginable. I don't know if I tried Banks, but I did have Range, I'm sure. And Boat Rocker, I didn't try yet. So Boat Rocker is one that I do need to have a little look at and see if I can find something from when I go to Japan. Yeah. So American Nun, German Schneider. That's the thing. There are some very good lager breweries. Like, for example, if you're into your lager beers, your German traditional styles, Dovetail Brewery in Chicago area. That's one that you could probably get on board with. Those guys do some really nice stuff. Fidens, yeah, I need to get some more beers from them. Oh yeah, no, 2U Fidens I do need to explore a little bit more, but yeah, 2U, they're really interesting. I think I reviewed their barley wine actually, and I think think I reviewed it a little bit too early. I probably should have let it mellow out a little bit more than I did. But the barley wine was, I would have wanted a bit more sweetness out of it. I remember that. But still, really solid beer actually. Tuju, for those of you watching in other places, Panamuitio Tuju in Finland, those guys are doing some really, really good stuff. Very solid brewery, experimenting a lot with like sour beers and pretty much every style imaginable at the moment. So yeah, if you do get the chance to try some Tuju stuff for whatever reason, you're not going to be disappointed by that. That's safe to say. England would be track Verdant and Cloudwater. That's interesting, Sam, because Cloudwater, Cloudwater their beers are reaching a bit further afield. One brewery I would love to see you try, Sam, actually, is Tempest from Scotland, because for me, if it comes the three breweries that you mentioned, Overtone, if you haven't managed to try them, those guys are based in Glasgow. They are as good as Track, if not a little bit better. Verdant, I haven't had in a little while, so I can't really comment on the current state of affairs. But Cloudwater, I think, have dropped a little bit in recent times. So Overtone is a brewery you very much need to try, Sam. But for me, if I was going to show you the best Scottish brewery, that would be Tempest. Tempest Brewing are the best Scottish brewery for me. Yeah. So I think maybe we can move on to our next beer in that case. So I need to have a little think about this and see how many we're going to do, because I might do one more full one and then we can do little tastes of the last two. I think that's probably a sensible idea for this stream. So let me just go away for a little minute, sort myself out, might make another little bit of bread actually, and we'll get another beer to have a wee look at. We'll maybe look at the four. Out of the beers that I had, there were four kind of core beers and then two special ones. So maybe just do little short tastings of the special ones, and we'll do proper drinking of the core beers, because that's the whole idea of this stream, is to celebrate Fallon Brewing. But yeah, the beer we've just finished then, let me just take Sam's comment away for the moment. This was the Switch from Fallon Brewing, a 4.8% hazy pale. Very nicely done, and it did hold up very well. So I'll be back with you guys in just a minute or two. So see you in a second. All right, guys, so we are back. Yeah, so before I introduce the fourth beer then, let's have a little look at what we have. So Sam was saying, speaking of me being hairy, a homeless fella just told me only half an hour ago I should be in ZZ Top. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, so I had Overtone due to love them, but no Tempest yet. Yeah, the thing is with Tempest, they're a very small operation actually. Probably you'd be most likely to get some of their bigger maltier stuff, but those guys are awesome. For me, Tempest are the best all-round brewery in Scotland. You know, they do everything. So many good beer from these guys. I will need to see about trying to sort you something from Tempest, Sam. So yeah, pester me about that because I will try and make that happen to the best of my ability. In Switzerland, where I've also lived, I like the Pilsners from Ueli and Basel. I think the water quality there is a pound effect on the taste. Yeah, no, I can see that. I do need to go and see Switzerland. That is very much on the list. Augustina Helles is definitely my all-time favourite lager. How widely available is that in Australia, actually? We need to be on a panel together again soon, sharing a beverage or 10. Yeah, that would be fun. What have we got here? Thanks again. Take care. Oh, I guess you're off. No, thank you for joining us from Wiesbaden. I think it's about bedtime there in Germany. So, Sam, yeah, I look forward to that. Hopefully we can make it happen soon. The work time difference isn't that favourable, and I'm not in the daytime or morning club as much as you are. Yeah, that is the big thing about the time difference, of course. So, yeah, let's go on to beer number 4 then. So, just put the glass up here for the moment. But this is a beer that I have actually reviewed on the channel before, and this is one that I always really enjoyed, in fact. So, yeah, this is one of their core range beers, the Platform C West Coast IPA at 6.3% ABV. Yeah, it's on the side here. This is a classic West Coast IPA using hops from the Pacific Northwest, clean and refreshing with plenty of citrus, resin, pine. This is a juicy, bitter, and satisfying hop burst on the palate. The juicy malt background as the perfect platform for the hops to shine. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there was a list of the hops in this one. If I don't knock my glass over first, I'm pretty sure there was a list of hops on this one. Let me see. Platform C. Fallon Brewing. I'm sure I mentioned in my review that I did of this years ago. I'm pretty sure that I did this one. So yeah, the hops in this one are Magnum, Citra, Cascade, Columbus, and Mosaic, apparently. And the malts are Maris Otter, Carapils, and Caragold. This should be really quite nice. But yeah, Magnum is quite an interesting American bittering hop. Gives you these big sort of floral kind of spicy notes. Citra, 14% alpha acid, good little bit of mango, nice juicy little bit of lemon lime and things like that. Cascade, 8% alpha acid, bit of grapefruit, but also quite a little bit of like datey and peary notes in my experience. Columbus is a big kind of floral, spicy American hop, 12% alpha acid, and then Mosaic is a big sort of orangey type thing. So, yeah, that's interesting. So, like I said earlier, this one is a 6.3% West Coast IPA. I have reviewed this beer on the channel before. I believe that was when it came in the 330 milliliter can as opposed to the big 440. But let's get this guy out into the glass, and we'll have another little look at this after what feels like a good few years, actually. It is a good few years since I've had this beer, if memory serves me correctly, but it still should be pretty damn nice. So there we go. It's good. I'll just put this round. My OCD takes over when I do this kind of part of the review. But anyway, as you can see, quite a bit lighter than I remember it being, I have to say. But yeah, you can see that this beer is poured with a nice finger. Yeah, a nice finger of a frothy I would say kind of cream coloured head there. You can see some medium sized bubbles on the surface of the liquid, but it's quite foamy that aside. Colour wise, this one's a very bright yellow golden straw colour. I remember this beer being a little bit more amber than it appears this time round. But yeah, one or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there. But overall, it does look pretty nice. And, you know, this is kind of definitely within the realms of what you might expect from a West Coast IPA. At 6.3% ABV, this one is, of course, not the most bold of that particular style category, but still, I think, pardon me, it still will be pretty damn nice. So yeah, let's have a little look at the aroma of this one and see how we get on. Nothing overly surprising about the appearance of this beer, considering what style it is. Oh, that does smell pretty damn good. As you'll know if you've watched the channel for any length of time, I'm a huge fan of a little bit of maltiness. You know, when you get brown sugar and stuff in beers, when it comes to West Coast IPAs, I like the big oily, caramelly sort of things. And, you know, Platform C was a beer that always just kind of hit the spot for me. It really did. So I'm curious to see whether it still manages to do that, even when it's a year old and the brewery's gone bust and all this kind of sad stuff. But yeah, aroma-wise, it certainly does kind of tick the boxes. So yeah, you get a lovely big kind of oily green component out of this one. Good little bit of a sweeter malty backbone. And then yeah, you've got those oily, fruity characteristics coming out of the beer too. So that gets a big thumbs up from me. I really do like how this pieces itself together. Yeah, so on where do we start with this then? The malty backbone of the beer. You got a lovely little bit of a kind of fresh white bread crust to this one. So yeah, very fresh white bread crust in there for me. On top of that, you get a nice, you really do get a nice little bit of kind of, how do we say, you get a little bit of crackery note to this one. There is a little bit of woodiness in there, but for me, the backbone of this beer is, yeah, fresh white bread crust, a little bit of wholemeal brown bread as well, and then yeah, you've got wee bits of wood and cracker and all this kind of thing underneath it. But then yeah, on top of that, from the Maris Otter, and Maris Otter is a very distinctive malt, you're getting a lovely kind of sweet brown bready character. You get white bread above that as well, and then you start to get a lot of brown sugar out of this beer. So for me, on the brown sugary side of things, I would say you've got some really nice, you have got some very, very nice sort of, yeah, like you've got some really nice kind of sweet, oily, like straight up caramel in there. You've also got a little bit of that more oily McVitie's digestive biscuity type vibe to this beer, which also is really interesting. So yeah, the malt base, as I've said with West Coast IPAs before, for me, these beers can lean two different ways. They can be quite oily and caramelly, such as the Sierra Nevada Torpedo, or they can be very kind of bready and biscuity, such as the Pliny the Elder. Yeah, they can be very sort of malty and biscuity, such as the Pliny the Elder. And that gives you that biscuity, bready, McVitie's digestive biscuit sort of thing. And that's very much where this beer goes. I do remember it being a little bit more oily back in the day. But as I've often said, your palate can change so much over time. So I don't know if this recipe was kind of messed around with a little bit and altered, but still, that goes together really nicely in this one. So yeah, I think we've covered what we need to say about the bready backbone of the beer, but certainly you get a little bit of toasty caramel out of this one. There's a bit of Werther's Original, butter candy, butterscotch, straight up sweet caramel, and also a little touch of biscuit in there too. So yeah, the way that everything goes together in that regard, I think is really very nice. On the hoppy side of things then, yeah, you do get a little bit of a kind of, You get a little touch of earthiness out of this one for sure. You can smell that deeper, dank kind of pine resin, big kind of floral aromatic, spicy notes to this beer too. But yeah, big kind of floral aromatic spice further forward you go. You've also got a good little bit of grassy component to this beer, which I also quite enjoy. But yeah, the fruity characters in this one are really nice. Like I get a little bit of a kind of lighter, juicy kind of mango for sure. You do get a little bit of passion fruit in there, apricot and pineapples and so on. But then you're also getting wee bits of like lemony, limey character at the very front of the nose. Yeah, the flavor profile of this one is, or the aroma profile of this one is really nice. I'm just trying to remember the names of the which hops it was exactly in this one. So yeah, Magnum, Citra, Cascade, Columbus, and Mosaic. Yeah, I don't get so much of the orangey character from the Mosaic in this one, but yeah, the Cascade and the Citra are definitely there, and that's probably one of the reasons why this beer feels so familiar, because you know they are some of the classic IPA hops. But yeah, I think, yeah, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think we should try this one then and see what it's all about. So yeah, this is the Platform C, a beer reviewed many years ago on the channel from the now defunct Fallon Brewing, just outside of Stirling, my hometown here in Stirling in Scotland. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Yeah, that's pretty damn solid. You can tell, obviously, with it being an IPA, you can tell the beer isn't in its absolute prime, but it still does a very good job. So yeah. Yeah, for me, the way everything pieces together in this beer is quite nice. It is quite a bitter example of a West Coast IPA, but again, if you're going for a West Coast IPA, that is to kind of be expected, to be honest. Yeah, it's good stuff. So, well, say for a West Coast IPA, it gives you everything you expect. It's definitely a more kind of biscuity and bready leaning West Coast IPA, and it has got a good little bit of bitterness to it, so it's proper old school. So yeah, you will enjoy this if you get the chance to try it. So let's just break the beer down and describe the flavour a wee more in depth, as we always do. Middle third of your palate then. So the backbone of the beer, you do have a little bit of that kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. So yeah, nice little bit of fresh kind of white bready bread crust in there. Good little bit of kind of wood and cracker for sure. You do get a little bit of a crackery sort of layer on top of that bread crust. You've got a wholemeal brown bready layer too, which is obviously from the Maris Otter. Then you get that more fluffy white bready character just sitting above that, and then you're into all the brown sugars. I've just seen Jamie's comment there. So he says, "Oh, I think I'm off for another few hours of shut eye. Have a nice trip to the US," he's saying. So yeah, no, thank you, Jimmy. I'll see you again soon. I'll talk to Sam a little bit later on. But yeah, the malt base, as we say, you've got a nice little bit of white bread in there, the brown bread. Then you start to get the brown sugars, like sweet kind of biscuity caramel out of this one. Yeah, above the kind of top of the brown bread, the sort of brown and white bread layers, yeah, there's a wee bit of a toasty brown sugar in there. Then you've got a more oily kind of caramelly note coming out of this one. So yeah, you've got a nice kind of oily caramelly note out of the beer. And then yeah, there's a more kind of concentrated sweet kind of brown. Yeah, there's a more kind of concentrated sweet brown sugary note into the aftertaste too. And yeah, you've got all these kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity notes coming out of it too. Yeah, I don't know if there's really much more to say about the middle third of your palate in this beer. It's kind of everything you'd expect. Bit of bread, bit of biscuit, quite oily. This beer does actually feel a little bit boozier than it is. It's only 6.3. Remember, yeah, 6.3. percent ABV. But yeah, I think that covers the middle third of your palate. The back third of your palate is quite similar. So for me, you've got a little bit of bread crust in the base. You've got the wholemeal brown bready layer, which feels a little bit lighter and more airy and a bit taller than the white bready layer above that, which feels lighter and more airy again. Then you've got the nice kind of bread crusty notes above that. Then the yeasty side of things. For me, the yeasty side of this beer is quite interesting. So we'll have a wee look at that. Yeah, the yeasty side of this beer for me, it's like a very dense and slightly sweet mix of white and brown bread there. So you can feel that yeasty character above everything else on the back third of the palate, kind of wrapped in honeycomb. It does work. It is quite nice. But definitely, yeah, back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of condenses down a little bit and squashes together. So, yeah, I think that's really nice, the way the malty and yeasty side of this beer goes together. So I think we can leave it at that for that side of it. We should have a little look at the hoppy side of things now. So in the back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of an earthy bitterness in there. But as you move further forward, yeah, the Columbus and things is showing you that very big spicy floral aromaticity there. And that really lingers there as you move toward the kind of front corners of your palate and round the front curve of the tongue. The beer is definitely lighter and more grassy, and it has a wee bit of zestiness to it as well. So yeah, these are all things that you would expect of the West Coast IPA, of course, and early edition hopping. And this beer has been around a good little bit, so there's quite a bit of early edition hopping goes on in this one. That's safe to say. So yeah. On the fruity side of things then, front third of your palate. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of kind of bready build-up in there. There's a mix of white bread and brown bread. The base of that front third of your palate, yeah, there's a bit of bread crust in there, the white bread, the wholemeal brown bread. Then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. And again, this beer is quite, it's really quite interesting in that sense because there's a fair wee bit of stuff going on. If you go to the back of that front third of your palate, you do get a little bit of a stronger grapefruit from the cascade. As you move further forward, you get this kind of oily, peary character in the base, but then you get this nice big juicy passion fruity note sitting on top of that, juicier mango as you reach the middle of that front third of your palate. And then as you move into the front half of the front third of your tongue, it's more about a big sort of lemon-limey sort of note coming out of it. So yeah, the way that goes together is really quite interesting in this beer for me. This is quite an interesting experience. It's safe to say that. So, yeah. I think, as you go toward the front of that middle third of the front of that front third of your palate, a good bit of limey and lemony kind of character coming out of this one, and a big sort of piney and floral zesty character coming out of the beer. So yeah, I really do like how all of that kind of just pieces together in this one, and that definitely gets a big thumbs up from me. That's really interesting. So yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the flavour of this beer. Otherwise, it's time to move on to the mouthfeel. And I think this maybe is going to be our last one for this live stream because I'm quite tired and I can kind of feel this going to my head just now because we've had a few cans of different beers so far. So yeah, for me, the mouthfeel of this one, it's quite an oily and slick beer. This, which you'd kind of expect of the West Coast IPA style, but at the same time, it feels really quite light and quite clean. I would describe it as being mid-bodied. It's right in the middle of the spectrum, so quite nice and mid-bodied, lovely sort of oily and silky kind of note out of the flavour of the beer. But then, yeah, you have a mix of things going on with this one. So in the malt base, you've got a bit of graininess underneath, bready smoothness in the middle, and lovely big oily sweetness on top of that. In terms of the hoppy side of things, this definitely has the early edition hopping you'd expect of this style. You know, big sort of 70, 80 IBU out of the beer, which is great to see. It's not so common these days, but yeah, you do have a little bit of a wet, leafy note out of it. But then yeah, you've got a mix of kind of oily, tropical and oily, citrusy character coming out of the flavor profile as well. But overall, very, very nice beer, this one. It is as good as I remember, but a bit more. I remember this beer back in the day being a little bit more oily and caramelly, but it kind of goes to show you like how your concept of beer can change a little bit over time, because back in the day this one was really oily and very caramelly for me. Now I find it a little bit lighter and more sort of bready and biscuity. So yeah, definitely food for thought when you go back and try beers that you had a number of years ago. But yeah, that is the Platform C, a 6.3% old school West Coast IPA from the now defunct Fallon Brewing in Kippen, just outside of Stirling here in Scotland. Very sad, of course. But yeah, I see we've got a few other comments here. So Sam is saying he's 3 stations away from his favourite Melbourne bar for barrel-aged imperial stouts and barley wines. Okay, that's interesting. That is definitely interesting. Next weekend, myself, Joe from the Beer Patrol, Josh from The Last Beer are reviewing some parish beers together. That could be interesting. I'm off for another few hours of shut-eye, having a good trip. Yeah, definitely. Or sushi booty. This one definitely looks tasty, but I'm in that. I think that first beer really appealed to me more than most for today's mood. Oh, okay. What's going on? So, as for what I'm drinking, or we'll be able to have a bottle of homebrew to go in the beer cooler, kind of a high IBU hazy IPA. Interesting. So, Jordan, I will need to chat to you again at some point. I'll write to you on Messenger, and we'll see. I will be in Japan for a little bit of time, so we should see if we can get together and have a few beers and a little meetup. That would be awesome. So yeah, I will drop you a message on Facebook, and we'll chat about that. So yeah, at this point, guys, I think maybe it's a good time to sign off. I think we've gone through 4 of the core beers from Fallon Brewing. So I'll just take you through a little quick run through these. So we started off with the Odyssey, which was the 4.1% American Blonde. That was really nice. Yeah, this beer for me, potentially the pick of the bunch up until Platform C. Really, really enjoyed this. We went from there to the Locomotive, which was a 3.8% session, Mosaic Session Ale. That was really good, but as I say, it just didn't top the Odyssey for me. And then we had the Switch, which I thought was a really nice New England pale ale, in fact, and it had held up especially well, considering that it was a year old. I thought this was really good. And then we finished off with this one, which was an old favourite of mine, the Platform C West Coast IPA at 6.3% ABV. So, yeah, honestly, at this point, I'm quite tired. I was going to look at the other 2 beers that I have. Those are more kind of special experimental sort of things. But to be honest, when we're doing a little bit of a Fallon Brewing showcase, I think this is probably a nice place to round off with a little taste of one of my favourite beers that Fallon Brewing ever did. For me, the 2 best beers that Fallon ever did were Platform C, the West Coast IPA, and also the Choo Choo Caramel Stout. That was a lovely, lovely beer. So yeah, I think we can leave it there for this one. So once again, guys, thank you for watching my live stream. I just thought this was a nice idea to do a little bit of a showcase for a now defunct brewery in my local area here in Scotland. We got to try 4 of the core beers, only one of which I ever reviewed on the channel. I am a bit disappointed in myself that I never reviewed the Odyssey as a sit-down review, but the other beers were very nice as well. But I thank you guys for watching. Check out my social media. If the Fallon Brewing website is still up, have a look at them. I really do hope they will return at some point in the future as a kind of gypsy brewer and then have their own brewery at some point too. But yeah, thank you for watching. Check out my social media. Check out Fallon Brewing social media. Check out my friends here in the comment section as well. We have Jordan Inside Outsider in Japan. He's got some really nice videos, you know, very well edited together. He's a lot better at the editing software than I am. That's definitely safe to say, but a lovely guy, and you will see him feature on a number of my videos going forward when I'm out in Asia. I'm sure we'll manage to figure some things out. And also Sam from Australia. I keep trying to encourage Sam to do his own beer channel and start reviewing beers, but he still hasn't really done that yet because he knows a lot of stuff. I'd love to see Sam start up his own beer review channel and do some stuff because he's a lovely guy. He knows his things. Let's just do this, Sam. Make your own YouTube beer channel and start reviewing all the Aussie beers. Teach us about Australian craft beer. But yeah, I think we can leave it there then. So yeah, once again, thank you guys for watching this live stream. I'm just going to take this off air just now because I do need to go and get some sleep. I'm quite tired, but I have enjoyed some really nice beers tonight. And all of those of you who have commented on the channel, on the stream, have been great company. So I will see you guys very, very soon. And Jordan, I will drop your message. Sam, I will be talking to you very soon as well, I'm sure. Slàinte, Skål, cheers. I hope you guys enjoyed this little Fallon Brewing showcase. And I'll see you guys another review very, very shortly. Ciao just now.